A warm welcome to this, the latest webinar in a series of leadership interviews from across the New Zealand ED network. And today it's my great pleasure to welcome Justine Gilliland, who is going to share her insights on the response and recovery journey in the Taranaki region. Justine is Chief Executive of Venture Taranaki and is on the boards of both ED-NZ and AgMart. Prior to joining VT, Justine served as Deputy Director General, Sector Partnerships and Programs at the Ministry for Primary Industries, and she's held a number of other senior management roles across the public service in innovation, strategy, comms, policy and ops, including as ED of the Royal Commission of Inquiry into the Canterbury Earthquakes building failures. Welcome, Justine.
Morena, Susan.
Morena. The Taranaki story seems to me to be a pretty unique one in that Taranaki had a number of unique challenges that were catalysed by changing government policy prior to the impact of COVID-19. Just for those listeners who don't have a strong understanding of the Taranaki region and its economy, can you just give us a brief overview of its economy and the vital stats pre-COVID-19, please, Justine?
Sure. So actually heading into COVID-19, our economy was performing really strongly. So we're largely made up in Taranaki of, I guess, two main output sectors, in the sense of the energy sector and the food sector. So food, and that food is largely dairy, but also includes sheep and beef and quite a significant amount of poultry, as well as a number of other smaller sectors. So honey, for example, is quite a big one for Taranaki, manuka honey. And then underpinning both of those critical sectors is a really strong engineering sector. So very, very strong engineering capability in Taranaki, as I say, around bred off that energy sector and also the strong food processing sector that is in Taranaki. And then the related piece off that, I guess, is that we've then got quite a bit of manufacturing still in Taranaki. We're one of the few regions in New Zealand that still has that quite strong manufacturing base. So heading into COVID-19, doing very well. We were also bucking the trends nationally in terms of continued rate of tourism growth. So generally doing really well as a region. Although as COVID started to come in, there was another factor that was occurring, which some people might be aware of, which is that helpfully, not really, the main oil producing countries decided to start having a price war. And so the price of oil plummeted actually to below zero. And that happened just actually as the whole COVID lockdown thing was happening. So.
So a couple of fronts that you're would have been struggling there with. So COVID-19, how did that impact on your regional economy?
So very significantly, I think, as everybody in New Zealand experienced, I guess the main thing being the impact of lockdown. So having businesses shut. And we had about 50% of our enterprises that were able to continue to work remotely, but 50% not. Which is quite a significant number. And as I say, there was the double impact for Taranaki of the COVID lockdown plus that really, really low world oil price, which is something that Taranaki is used to as a region. Like we're used to grappling with that kind of fluctuation from time to time, but not double blows at the same time. Yeah. So yeah, quite significantly impacted there. The big strength that we had was the food sector. I think again, along with lots of other regions in New Zealand, that is what has really held us up and continues to be a strong performer for the region. So thankfully, that food sector was able to operate right through lockdown.
So have you seen significant job losses, or is that diversification that you've got going there held it reasonably stable?
So we haven't really seen any job losses in the food sector, but in other areas of our economy, we definitely have had an increase in our unemployment rate already. Unfortunately, we obviously it'll be really interesting to see, and we anticipate that it's going to continue to grow as the wage subsidy comes off. We also do have as I say, the double impact of that low oil price combined with COVID-19 in an international sense. So talking about international markets and investment flows, and the companies that operate here, quite a few of them are international companies, or even if they're not, they're impacted by the international environment.
Yes.
And so what we are seeing is a postponement, and even in some cases cancellation, of large energy projects that were going to be kind of occurring over the next few years. So that's a double whammy, I guess, because it's due partly to COVID and, as I say, that international environment, but it's also due to that low oil price.
Yes. I know that your initial response to COVID-19 was innovative and supported by the local council with funding. So do you just want to explain to listeners what you did there?
Sure. So we were obviously aware that moving into lockdown, that a lot of our small and medium enterprises would be potentially some of the most impacted, in the sense that larger companies also impacted, but perhaps slightly more able to cope with their own resources. And what we felt would be strongly needed was access for small and medium enterprises to skilled professional advice that could support them in making decisions, could support them, for example, in presenting their case to the bank if they needed to get through the finance, supporting them with, even things with like a business continuity plan, with digital marketing strategies, those sorts of things. So what we did, and I think we did it in three working days, or five days, because we included a weekend. We designed and rolled out what we called our professional services grant. And so the councils came on board, and we were able to provide a grant of $400 to any small and medium enterprise that was impacted by COVID. And then in the end, we had around 60 local firms, so lawyers, accountants, marketing advisors, etc., IT, come on board, and they matched that $400 grant. So it was amazing spirit of collaboration and support for Taranaki enterprises. So that meant that those small and medium enterprises could get access to $800 of professional advice and support for free to them, no cost to the enterprise.
And I think the remarkable thing about that story is the rapidity with which you rolled that out. It was almost immediate. Some regions are just getting around to doing something like that now. They just resolved on what the size of their package is, and they're using it. But it was the rapidity that impressed me greatly.
Thanks, Susan. And I think it was, for us, it was the confidence of our councils was critical, and so having them there with that core funding was amazing. So it was great that they were able to, just make that decision basically based off a phone call from me. And then I think what stood us in great stead was that we've got a strong team of enterprise advisors who got it and could quickly design, and we also were able to utilise some of our RBP processes. Yep. So we just adapted and modified those processes for this particular fund very quickly.
So that was your initial response, and then you moved into recovery planning mode. Where have you got to on that journey?
So I think what stood us in a good stead in terms of doing that recovery planning was the fact that we already got our Taranaki 2050 roadmap, and we also had a pre-existing economic development strategy before that as well. So what we did during lockdown was we went through all of the actions that are in those plans. We developed a COVID impact framework that we assessed those actions through, and that gave us a prioritised kind of suite of actions that we then grouped up into some core pillars or themes. And so that has formed what we call our tactical return to better plan, which basically is guiding our efforts through to 2023. It's still really grounded in the vision of our roadmap about transitioning to a low emissions future in a just and inclusive way. So we've still got the eye on the long term, but we've done a prioritised suite of actions, and we're in the process at the moment of basically starting to roll those out.
So, excuse me, the 2050 roadmap. I know you went through an extensive consultation process for that, and there was significant collaboration for that to realise that plan. Did you find that stood you in good stead for when COVID-19 hit, and that collaboration that was needed?
Yeah, absolutely. Firstly, the fact that we had the plan, but then, as you say, the fact that it had been really collaborative meant that when we were forming up going through this process of kind of prioritising actions and coming up with framework, and we already had a bunch of engaged people who understood it, who got it, and still ascribed to the vision, etc., but could work with us quite quickly on prioritising those actions. And we've obviously tried to do it in such a way that it still retains the spirit and the core values that came through our co-design process in developing the roadmap.
So the COVID-19 would have had an impact on a number of things, I would imagine. Your organisation, not just the region, but your organisation, your team, the energy levels required, your leadership style maybe, and communication styles. What of those things most stood out for you as an experience in light of COVID-19?
Probably the number one for us as a team is that our client interactions tripled compared to what we would normally deal with on a monthly basis. We're still sitting at double the level of interactions, so it's still quite intense, but at least it's not as full on as it was during COVID. And what we had to do was redeploy some of our staff who normally work in other areas into that client-facing business or enterprise support role. But what was great about the whole journey, I guess, was our team, the willingness of our team to do that. So everybody in our team, cares passionately about our region and wants to help support all the enterprises and all the people in our region. So it was all hands to the pump, and there was nobody kind of sort of was going, oh, well, why are we doing this? It was very clear everybody needed to get stuck in. And we actually had some staff join us during lockdown, so that was interesting. How you
baptism by fire.
Yeah, baptism by fire. And how do you induct someone into an organisation when you so there was some people who joined who I had never met never actually met. So how do you kind of bring them on board? So that was probably one of my challenges, and I must admit, I struggled with being able to communicate with the team solely electronically. It really brought home for me how much I rely on sensing the mood of other people, picking up how they're feeling by being around them. And so very difficult to pick that up when you're on a Teams call and they just have little bubbles with some initials, and you can't tell whether people are responding to what you're saying or thinking that you're just waffling on. But I think so as much as possible tried to have those regular calls. I did more emails to the team than I would normally do, just describing what was going on and sharing some of my own kind of thoughts and reflections, and saying the same thing. I did feel like I was saying the same thing over and over again, but I think it was because there was so much going on for people that for me, I felt I needed to reiterate what our priorities were, etc., many times. The other critical thing that we needed to do was also check in regularly with all of our people, because we're dealing with some very stressed business owners who are in very complex situations. So it's really important for our people that they are supported in those interactions, and that we try and balance that with time out for our team, so that or a mix of clients. So we have got clients who are obviously still looking at growth opportunities and those sorts of things. So try and balance that load so that our team are not just hearing or having to work with those stressed people kind of every day. Yeah,
and it can't
we can be resilient and be there for people in the long run.
Yeah, and it can't have been easy for those people that who are business advisors, or ordinarily not people that have been brought in subsequently, or other parts of the team that have been transferred over, because they've been used to working in a relatively buoyant economy, and then all of a sudden there's business deaths imminent, that would be stressful. So yeah, it's great to hear that you've done all that work on supporting your team.
It's not just that we're perfect, obviously, but yeah,
amidst everything else, it's difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, and once we were able to move to level 2, I think it was, we were able to bring back about half of our people, just to provide the appropriate distancing in the office. But as soon as we could, maybe I can't remember which level it was, but anyway, as soon as we could, we brought back everybody into the office, and that made a huge difference for being able to support people better, to get some of those communications happening again, connectivity happening again. Some of our decision making was a little bit slower during lockdown, unfortunately. So just better when we're all together, and able to more easily interact and connect and provide each other with that support.
Yes, yeah. So if there is a wow moment for you in post-COVID-19, what would that have been? Were you really wondering?
So yeah, it's so my wow moment in some ways is probably more about during lockdown. So one of the things I loved about lockdown was how friendly and collaborative everybody was. So Taranaki is a pretty friendly, collaborative place anyway, but it just went to another level, and it was just amazing. Everybody being so courteous and kind and friendly, and for me, that's something that would be fabulous if we can retain some of that. So I've kind of made it my own little personal, I guess, commitment to try and be like that as we came out of lockdown as well. So yeah, that was probably my wow moment, is when people need to, we can all pull together in a really amazing way.
Yes, and I'm hearing that story from across New Zealand. It's been very heartening. Okay, so your recovery, you're on your way to recovery, and I guess I'm wondering how prepared you are after this experience how prepared you feel you are for the next economic shock as a result of your recovery planning.
I would have to say that, so as an organisation, we're probably prepared. I think, however, as an economy, both regionally and nationally, I don't think we are prepared at all. So, and I think that actually that next economic shock is actually coming in the next 6 months, as wage subsidies come off and businesses start to feel the real impacts of what's happened, and also what's happening in the world. And I don't think we are prepared, because I think the resilience that we had built into a lot of our economy, we kind of used up during lockdown as a nation. So yeah, it does worry me that I don't think we are very prepared, and I don't know that as a country we have a really strong plan for how we are going to move forward, deal with what's coming, and try and build that resilience back as fast as we possibly can.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree. Look, thank you, Justine. And unless you have anything else that you'd like to share with listeners, viewers, I might just wrap it up there. And thank you so much for taking time out, because I do know how busy you are. And amidst all of that, you managed to raise a young family. So I'm in awe.
I have a great team.
Well, congratulations to all of you, your team included, and thank you for taking time out today. Really appreciated it.
No problem. Thanks, Susan.
Thank you.